In this video, I'm going to be showing you everything you need to know about Toposolids in Revit. So if you don't know, Toposolids are a new approach to topography in Revit. It starts from Revit 2024, and in this video, I'm going to be covering everything. So we're going to be exploring how to convert old topography into new Revit Toposolids. We're going to be talking about how to create a new Toposolid from scratch, how to create a Toposolid from an import, so either a CAD file or an Excel spreadsheet, how to set everything up, most importantly the contour lines, how to create subdivisions and alternatives to subdivisions like splitting Toposolids, how to create voids, how to cut topography with walls and foundations, which elements can be hosted on Toposolids, and finally we're going to be talking about graded regions or bringing phasing to topography. Let's go. Now, before we jump into Revit, I would just like to mention today's video sponsor, and that is the Environment plugin. This is the ultimate toolset for landscape architects. It offers more than 50 tools dedicated to site design, so if you're working on large landscape projects, there really is no alternative. It has features for editing walls, managing geolocation or planting and collaboration, but they also have amazing features dedicated to topography, which is much more in line with today's video topic. They have Topography Tools panel, which allows you to create topography either starting from existing edges and surfaces, or you can create your topography from scratch. And what I find most exciting is the Modify Topography panel, which allows you to essentially shape your topography like clay. It has tools like Inflate Topography, Shape by Point, or Mesh Control, and you can easily get the topography that you want by using these tools. Now, it will, of course, work with Revit 2024 and Toposolids, and I'm going to be creating a whole new kind of dedicated tutorial to environment really soon. Now, if you want to check it out and if you want to get a free trial, you can just follow the links up in the cards above or down in the description of this video. Now, you can also get an extended trial if you get my site design and coordination course. Also there on my website you can find all of my other Revit courses where I take the extra time to go slowly step by step and explain all of Revit's interesting topics. Now you can find a link to my website up in the cards above and then also in the description of this video. Now, without any further ado, let's jump straight into Revit. First, let's explore opening an older file, so Revit 2023 or older, where we already have a Toposurface, so our old version of topography, and let's see how can we convert that into a Toposolid. So here I have this project. It was made in Revit 2020, and here this is a Toposurface. Now you can see it's completely flat, and when I select it in Revit 2024, it's going to say topography. Now, as soon as I select it on the Modify Topography tab, we're going to get a Generate Toposolid button, and when you click on that, it's going to bring up here a warning. So here it's a problem with the work plane, so I'm just going to exit out of that and then move to the site plan, and then here in the site plan, if you select that topography, and let me just move this away a little bit, Generate Toposolid, it's now going to give you this menu where you need to select the base level as well as the family type. So the base level is basically the base level of topography. I'm just going to set it to ground level, and then we have the family type. Because this is an older file, we don't really have any Toposolid types because, well, there wasn't Toposolids in Revit 2020. So I'm just going to select this Toposolid 1, which is kind of the default one that appears when you open up a file in Revit 2024, and click OK. So now when I go to the 3D view, you're going to get this kind of a little error message, and you can see we have some overlap going on over here. So if I zoom in, you can see that now we still have that topography selected. However, below that we have a Toposolid. So you can just come in here, select that topography on top, hit delete, and it's gone, and now you have a Toposolid. Now, something that you'll notice here, as I said, that because we didn't have any Toposolid types, this one is just kind of a basic type. When we go into edit type, it has this default thickness, and it basically has only one layer, so Now it's up to you just to build out the rest of the layers and turn this into a great Toposolid. Let's now create a Toposolid out of an imported file. So if I go here to Massing and Site and to Toposolid, we have an option to create from import, and when I select that, we have a couple of options. One is create from CAD, and the second one is create from CSV file. So this is an Excel spreadsheet file. Let's start with the CAD first. Here you can see I've linked up this CAD file, and what I'm going to do first before I create this Toposolid from import, I'm going to select that CAD file, go to query, and then I just want to find my contour lines, click on them, and just see what's their layer name. Here you can see they're called contour lines. Now I can just OK out of that, hit the escape key a couple of times, and then go back to Toposolid, create from import, create from CAD, and then you just select that CAD file, and here you're going to get all of the layer names that you have in that file. I'm just going to go to check none, then I'm going to find my contour lines layer, and then I'm just going to click OK, and that's going to generate a Toposolid. So now I can select that CAD file, I can either remove it, or I can just hide that element, and then perhaps let's view this in realistic. Now you can see I have an extremely accurate Toposolid, and something that I really like compared to the old Toposurfaces, we have those concave edges, so it's following the edge of that topography perfectly. Previously it would connect this point with this point, and then this point with this point, and it wouldn't look right. Right now we have the topography that looks exactly like our CAD import. Okay, so now let's move to our create from CSV file. So I'm just going to click on this, and then I have this file on my desktop, this points file. So this is basically a spreadsheet where it has basically numerical values of measured points for topography. So essentially somebody went around, measured each point, and then it has the coordinates for 3 axes, and that's in form of this Excel file. So now I'm just going to hit open. So for the units, this is going to be in meters. Click OK, and then we have our topography. However, it is really high, so something that I'm going to do is go to zoom all, and you can see it kind of went all the way up here, and then I can just go to the height offset, set that to 0, and hit apply. Okay, and that's going to drop that topo surface down. I can move it off to the side here so we can view it a bit better, and now you can see I have this whole extremely precise topo surface generated from that points file, or Toposolid generated from that points file. So this is how you can create Toposolids from imports. Now let's explore creating a Toposolid from sketch. So I'm just going to go here to Massing and Site, Toposolid, and then we have to create the boundary line. I'm just going to create a simple rectangle just like so. Then I'm going to hit the escape key once and finish. Now you're going to see we have a completely flat Toposolid. I'm going to switch this to realistic so it looks a bit nicer, and then let's make some changes. So to edit the sketch, you can go back here, and then you can make some modifications if you want to that sketch. So if we want to add an arc here, I can simply do that. Now, if you want to change the actual shape and shape our Toposolid, we can go here to Modify Sub-Elements, and then we can start moving them. So you can change the boundary first if you want. So for example, I can select this whole boundary line. I can move it by using this grip, so arrows. It doesn't matter if you select the bottom or top, you can move it up and down, irrelevant to that. And then here you can add a numerical value. So if I want this to be at 4000 millimeters, I can just type that in. In addition to that, you can select individual points at the edges, and then you can move those, and you can also add a numerical value. Then we have the option to add points. Now, to understand point placement a little bit better, I have created this section here so you can observe the changes in section according to the existing levels. So first here we have two of these options where we can place along surface or absolute. So placing along surface means that once you place a point, it's going to add this value to the existing position on the surface. So let me demonstrate. If this is set to 0 and we set this to along surface, now once I place a point here, you can see the point is placed, but there isn't really much change to this topography, because even though this point has been set to 0, 0, it's 0, 0 from this position here. That's why it didn't move much. It is going to change the topography just a little bit, but not really make any significant changes. However, when I set this to absolute and then place a point over here, you're going to see it's going to drop this down to level 1, which is set at 0. So it's going to drop everything down to 0 because the elevation has been set to 0. So that's basically how these two different options affect our topography. So depending on what you're trying to do, if I set this to 1000 or let's go with 3000 millimeters, and now I place a point over here, it's going to set that exactly at the 3000 millimeter level. However, if I change this back to our along the surface option and set this again to 3000 millimeters and place a point here, you're going to notice that that point is going to go from here all the way up by the value of 3000 millimeters. So that's basically how these options work. And then here we have the option to set elevation base. So basically, from where is it calculating the value? So is it the current level, the project base point, survey point, or internal origin? Usually you're going to keep this at project base point. And now if you want to reset the shape, you can always go back here and just reset that back to a flat shape if that's something that you want to do, and then you can go back to modify sub-elements and continue making changes. Now I have modified this topography a little bit, and now let's make some changes to the points. One thing to note here, when you select your topography, you're not going to see any of those points. This is really good because sometimes you have many points and it would just be overwhelming. However, if you do want to see those points, you can just select your Toposolid, go to Shape Editing, expand this menu, and then you have Preview Points, and now once you select your topography, it's going to preview those points, and you can actually use the tab key to select them, and you can now change their values here. I'm just going to drop this back down to 3000. Now, when it comes to these points, when I select my topography and go to Modify Sub-Elements, just by clicking on the Modify Sub-Elements, it's kind of like a select tool where you can select individual points. If you select them, you can use the arrows to move them kind of organically up and down. You can input a value here numerically, or what you can do is you can come in and hover over the center of the point, and then you can just drag it over. Now, this can sometimes give you issues from my experience, where it tends to move that point not only in the X and Y direction, but also in the Z direction. So it tends to move it up and down, which I don't like. So I'm just going to drop this back down to 3500. And now if you actually want to move it kind of in a plane, you can simply go to the Move tool, and now you can move that point. Unfortunately, we cannot copy points. Something else that you'll notice here is when you select one of these lines inside, you can actually move that whole line up and down organically or numerically here. Finally, we have the Convert Lines. So Convert Lines basically turns this into a split line. I don't really know why would you do this. Split lines for me personally don't work very well here with Toposolid, but if you want to do that, you can convert it like this into a split line. So now when you go to modify, it's going to just appear over here. If you don't want to see it anymore, you can just select it, go back to modify sub-elements, and you cannot really convert it back. However, you can just hit delete. The line will stay there, but it will not be a split line. So you do have that option when it comes to your split lines. Let's now take a look at contour lines. So previously with Revit 2023 and earlier, contour lines used to be adjusted on the Masking and Site tab. Here in the Model Site drop menu, we used to have a dialog here which we could open and adjust those. Now with the Toposolids, which act as system families for themselves, the contour lines are adjusted in the type properties. So you can have multiple different Toposolid types, and each one can have different contour lines. So if I go here to the contour display, you're going to see that it looks like this. So in this case, we have two different types of contour lines. We have the primary ones, which go at every 1000 millimeters or 1 meter, and then we have these secondary contour lines, which go from 500 or every 500 millimeters or every half a meter. And then here we have the range type. So is it single values or multiple values? Single values basically means you have only one at one spot, and multiple values means, well, there's a lot of them, obviously, like we have here. And then you can even check them on and off, which I like. And here you can insert new ones. So for example, I can insert a new one, which is going to start at, let's say, 2000 millimeters. It's going to stop at whatever. We're going to just place it as a single value, and then it can be I don't know, a primary contour line. And then if I uncheck both of these, hit apply, okay, apply, we're only going to have that one single value at 2 meters. So you can see it here. Anyways, let's go back here, check on these two, and I'm just going to uncheck this one, hit apply, okay, apply, and there we go. Now you have noticed here that we have this primary and secondary contours, but we don't really have the option to adjust the line type. Well, that can be adjusted in a view-by-view basis, or it can be adjusted on a project-wide basis. So on a kind of single view basis, you can go just to the view properties, go to visibility graphics overrides, find topography, and then in topography here we have the primary and secondary contour lines. If you want to set it up for an entire project, so in all views to have different display for these two types of lines, what you can do is you can just go to the Manage tab, find the Object Styles, and there again under Topography, you're going to notice that we have our primary contours and secondary contours, and you can adjust those. You can see the primary ones are have the line weight of 6, and the secondary ones have a line weight of 1. That's why we have some thicker lines and some thinner lines. And I'm now just going to cancel out of this menu. Now let's talk about subdivisions. And the truth is, I don't really like them. So anyways, here when you select a Toposolid, we're going to get a Toposolid shaping panel, and there we have the subdivide tool. When you select it, you have basically the option to sketch out a subdivision. So if I go here to the site plan, I can create a rectangle like so, and then this is going to be a subdivision. When I go back to the 3D view, this is what that's going to look like. So essentially you get another additional layer on top of the existing Toposolid, and then here you can set up the height of this. Now the downside when it comes to setting up the height is you can't really go negative, so you can't really create a reveal. It can only be kind of added on. So if you want to make it smaller, like 100, you can do that, but you can't really go below 1. It has to be a positive value, which I find a little bit annoying. So anyways, if you want to adjust the material here, you can just go to material, and for example, if we want to turn this into a road, I can assign this pavement material, and it's going to look like that. Now we do have the option to inherent contours, so we have this option. So right now you can see we have contours even on this subdivision. However, if we select the subdivision and uncheck that, you're going to notice now it's going to be flat. So I think this can be interesting if you're creating roads or parking or something like that, and you don't really want to show contours. Let's say you only want to show contours on actual grass, earth, and so on. So you do have that ability. Now, my main issue with these subdivisions is the fact that when you cut a section through this, it looks absolutely awful. So let me cut a quick section here, open that up, you can see this is what that looks like. So this is basically the subdivision. It isn't even the same line weight. Here we have this thick line that kind of eats up half of this subdivision. It just doesn't look right. If we go to fine level of detail, again, it's just not better. If I go to join geometry, it's not going to let me. Yeah. So we're going to get an error message. We can try to resolve it, but yeah, it doesn't work really. So I find it annoying just because it's kind of slapped on. However, the main benefit is the fact that now if you take this topography, underlining topography, and if you go and move one of the points, your subdivision will adapt to that change. So you do have that ability. However, if you want to create a road, usually you would want to have it going inside topography, not on top of it. So for something like that, you really can't use this efficiently. It's just not going to look right. So another option that you can do is to cut geometry. So you can cut your Toposolid just by going here on the Modify tab and going to the Split Element tool. And now the Split Element tool can actually cut a topo surface, and I can go here and I can actually carve out a road, for example. So if I want to carve out a section like this, hit finish. Okay, delete instances. We have some issues, but there we go. Basically, this is what we get. So this is now separate geometry. So now we can take this and we can make modifications. We can create a new type. We can turn it to something else. We can even give it an offset. So something like that. So now, as you can see, now we have that kind of indentation, and this is going to look much better. We can even apply different contours, and we can remove contours, so on and so forth. So I think this is the better option in terms of how it performs, especially when you run a section through this. It's going to look much better. Oops, not that. And you're also going to have the ability to adjust layers independently from here and here, and you can even use join geometry to join this. So in section views, in presentations, it's going to look much better. However, the downside of this approach where you're splitting geometry is the fact that now when I select this and when I go to modify sub-elements, I'm going to be modifying this basically separately from the rest of the topography or the rest of the Toposolid. So now if I want to make some adjustments, I would essentially have to adjust both sides. So if you're using this approach, or if you're creating roads, at this point, my way of thinking is we would probably start off with this subdivision, and then when you have everything kind of finalized, you can replace a subdivision with a split Toposolid, because it's going to give you better presentation options. Now let's talk about building paths. Well, we don't have them. Now we use voids. So the first option for voids is to use a component family. Here I have created this floor-based void, and floor-based families are going to be hosted on Toposolids, so you can just cut a void like that. The second option is to go to component, model in place. I'm just going to use Toposolid for my category, click OK, and then you can simply use a void, sketch out a rectangle, hit finish, extend it, and then just use cut geometry to cut that void out of our Toposolid. And finally, third option is to go and use a mass. So turn on massing inside, go to in place mass, and then you simply sketch something out like this. You go to modify, you select that, you turn that into a void form, so something like this. Okay, let's adjust it a little bit. Let's select the top. Okay, like that, and then you would go to cut geometry again and just subtract that void from our topography, and then you can hit finish. And at any point you can adjust any of these. This one you can only adjust the position, but that's it. So that's basically three different ways to cut openings inside of our Toposolids. This is pretty great because now we can make actual underground structures where topography goes over the building or parts of the building, which I find really exciting. Speaking of cutting a topo surface, if you have foundation or a wall or something like that, now you can actually cut that out of your Toposolid. So if I come in here and go to the Modify tab, I can use the Cut Geometry to basically cut this with a wall and with the foundation. So now when I select that, now basically this is going to be cut. So if I select these two items and hide them temporarily, now you can see we actually have that opening in the Toposolid, which I think it's really great. It's actually going to calculate the material that's being dug out and all that good stuff. So we now have options to actually cut the topography with building elements. When it comes to hosting elements on topography, we can actually host multiple different categories. So if I go to massing and site, obviously we can host site components. Then we have the option to host parking if we want. We can host floor-based elements. So for example, this floor-based void that I have created, I can host that as well. Then we can host railing. So if you want to host railing, for example, in this case, for this road, I have created a curb as railing. So I can simply go to my site plan and then I can go to railing. It's this railing 1, and then I can simply create railing just like that, pick new host, pick this, hit finish, go to the 3D view, and this is what we get. So now we get that curb modeled as railing, which I really like. Now also we can use the floor slab edge. Now you might think, well, this is great, this is even better than railing and we can use it for curbs. Well, we cannot. The slab edges can only be placed on horizontal elements, and even there it's not perfect. But if I try to place it on slab edge, if I try to place it here on a curve, it's not going to work. It's only going to allow me to do it here at the bottom where we have a horizontal line, so that doesn't work. Finally, let's talk about graded regions or introduction of phasing into topography. You want to demonstrate that the topography or the site was one way when you got there, the existing site, and then you made some changes and how much earth was removed from the site or has to be added to the site. So with topography, we do this with the graded region tool. So basically you click on the graded region tool, you have a couple of options to create new topography exactly like the existing one, or to create a new one based on the perimeter points only. So the second option will only keep kind of the outside points and the inner ones will be deleted, and this one will keep everything. So basically it will keep double your topography as the old existing phase, and then it will bring in a new phase. So I'm just going to click on this option and select the topography. There we go. And now we can start making some changes. So for example, in this site, let's say we want to select this point and just move everything a little bit towards the inside, just like that. So we're making some changes here, and you can see that now we're starting to have kind of two different types of topography. Okay, this is annoying for it going up. So let's see, can I move it like that horizontally? Okay, so essentially I'm making some changes here. Let's say I'm happy with the set of changes I've made. I can go here to modify, and now it's going to appear like this. It looks a little bit weird because here we have the new topography. So here if I go to phasing, it's going to say new construction. If I select the gray one, it's going to say phase created, new construction, phase demolished, new construction. So this is demolished. Now I actually don't like the fact that it's created in new construction, so I'm just going to set this to existing and then hit apply. And then also for the view, I'm going to go to the phase filter and just go to show complete. When I hit apply, in the view, when it's set to phase new construction, it's only going to show the modified topography. If we go back to existing, it's going to show us the old topography, or how the site existed originally. So that's basically how the graded region works. Something that I like, and I've noticed that here, I don't think this was available previously, it's the fact that it gives you the net cut fill. So basically here you can see we have actually removed 731 cubic meters of earth. And then this is the fill, this is the cut. So basically it's going to give you all of this information, so you have it on hand. So I actually like the fact that it's here, and then later on it can be even scheduled. So that's basically how graded region works with the new Toposolid. Okay, that's going to conclude today's tutorial. If you have some perhaps specialized site video ideas or something like that, please let me know in the comment section below. If you want to get access to all of my Revit project files, like some of the files I have shown you here, but of course all of the rest, all of my Revit project files are available on my Patreon page, which I'm going to link up just below this video in the description, and then also up in the cards above. Thank you for watching, guys. Make sure to check out my website, balkanarchitect.com, for more Revit courses. There I have over 120 hours of content, and I'm adding more each week. Make sure to subscribe for more videos, and also I've added a video over there that might interest you as well.